Thank you, Christine, for being here. Thank you so much and acknowledge you for being here with me this afternoon, a Friday afternoon especially. I know you live in a beautiful, beautiful area. One of my favorite beach. I think I've told you that before.
Yes, you have.
I love where you live. I love the photos I see of you on the beach. And how are you going? How has Easter been actually?
I've had a lovely Easter actually. The weather's been beautiful, as you
Yes,
know, in
isn't it?
Melbourne. It's been
Yeah,
fantastic over Easter.
yeah.
And one of the things I got to do is babysit my little granddaughter because her mum and dad went out to the movies together that was on Easter Sunday. So I
How old is
really
she?
enjoyed that. She's only 16 months old. She's just adorable. So, yeah,
Oh,
we have
wow.
a lot of fun together.
So sweet. I
Yeah.
love babies.
And then I had a lovely conversation with my son and daughter-in-law when they came home because my granddaughter had already got to bed and got to sleep. So it
Yeah.
gave me an opportunity to sit with them and have a nice conversation with them that I haven't really done for a little while because
Oh,
life gets
nice.
busy, you know.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
especially with COVID and everything. I guess
yes,
we haven't
yes.
had the time to do all these
Mm, mm,
face-to-face things.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, how is your business going? Talk to me about your business. Like, how are you going inside your business?
Look, it's moving forward. It's going well. I've now got a contract happening with a local
Nice.
place up the road, and also have a few paying clients on the go. So, I mean, I only left Monash
Yes, I know.
December last year, and I haven't even really launched my business as yet. However, I've just been moving forward in the coaching with the Coaching Institute and applying what I've been learning. And even though, due to the mindfulness work that I do, I've been practicing that for decades in my own life, and that's
Yeah,
what's really changed my life for the better.
yeah.
Um, what I'm learning now is on another level, and it's wonderful, really, because I can just see the benefits of it and how much it helps others, and the results I'm already getting in a short space of time when I'm
Um,
coaching other people. So
yeah.
it's
And did
really
you need the coaching in your life? Is it something that was needed? You needed for yourself?
um, as in joining. Is that what you mean?
No,
As a
as a
person,
personal enrichment or development.
yeah. Oh, look, I think when I was actually doing work on myself, I don't think I really looked at coaching as such.
Yeah.
Um, it was more counselling guidance or psychologists, that type of thing. And I'm sure I did need a lot more than I received, but I
Yeah.
always felt something was not quite right with how I was in my life. There were certain things I wanted to change. So doing what I'm doing now has actually been a real passion of mine for some time. And
Yeah.
I'm finally sort of achieving goals that I never thought that I would be able to achieve in my life. So it's very exciting, really, because I feel like the rest of my life is going to be really exciting, just getting better and better each day as I go along.
Yeah. And when you talk about your life, where you come from or what has been, I know a little bit of your story because we've talked about that beforehand.
Mm.
How do you think your life has been in your perspective, and how have you been able to change it to reach this point in time today? Maybe give us a little bit of backstory.
Okay, I'll give you a little bit of background. I grew up in a very toxic home when I was little, and my parents both came over here from England, so they didn't have family out here, and they had 8 children, 9 actually. Another one came along a bit later on that we found out about later. And my mum was kind of, I think she suffered a lot as each child came along. Being so young at the time, I didn't really fully understand what was going on. And there was a lot of violence, a lot of domestic violence in the house, and a lot of yelling and screaming. And as a kid, I didn't really understand what was happening. So I was very fearful of being at home. And I don't have a lot of fond memories, I suppose, of my mother and, you know, her being warm and kind or anything like that, which is a bit sad, isn't it? But I think it's kind of helped make me the person that I am today. And as we were growing up, my parents, my mum was actually diagnosed with schizophrenia. And I think
When was she diagnosed? How old were you when you were aware of it?
I was probably very little when she was diagnosed with it, but when I was aware of it wasn't until I was much older that I found out that there was these kind of problems happening. And
what is it exactly? What is like? Can you give us a little bit of a
description?
Yeah.
I think it's more about it's something to do with the brain, how the brain works, and a person can have multiple personalities. And I remember when I was older, I spoke to a doctor that had a file on Mum. And he said he still had the file and said that she had supposedly 8 different personalities going on, which I was like quite gobsmacked. So I wanted to find out a little bit more about it all. And I guess it helped me to understand too how challenging and difficult it must have been for her.
Yeah.
As a child, you just really had no idea why she'd just go off the planet. And
so how was it as a child? What was your experience of her as a child?
I was very scared of her. Yeah, so I would hide. Everyone, you know, because there was so much things going on, and she would just like get quite violent. She would smash things and just do sort of things out of the ordinary, like make you sit down and chop all your hair off, and just crazy stuff like that. I do remember one time my older sister and I got locked in a back room for about a week with no food or anything. And she would do sort of random things and sit out the back and burn all of our clothes. And there was all things like that I remember. And I remember being really terrified of her. She came in one day and wanted to take, I had like a doll, and I was laying on top of it because it was the only thing I sort of would snuggle up to. And she ripped a blanket off and was trying to look if there was anything else that we had. And I managed to save her that Raggedy Ann doll. She didn't get it. And I just remember being so relieved at the time. But there was a lot of things that occurred like that. And she just, well, you know, they kept having children. I could never quite understand why they would keep having more kids when she was clearly not coping with the ones that she had. Even at a young age, I remember thinking that.
Yeah.
And she would argue with my dad when he was there. She'd often kick him out of the house and throw his things out the front door, because he used to do stained glass windows and mosaics for churches. Quite a few of his stained glass windows are in churches around Victoria. And I remember one day she was yelling and screaming and throwing matches into his studio, and she'd broken his window and smashed all the mosaic that he'd been working on. And I just remember looking up. I don't remember even where anyone else was. And, you know, my dad just broke down in tears, and I just remembered thinking, oh, this is really awful.
Yeah. And did your mom, obviously she had that for a long time, like all her life.
Yeah, yeah.
How was she? Do you know how she was as a child and what was her upbringing? So
Well, the interesting thing is too, I don't really know what she was like as a child, but as we were growing up, because what happened was my parents separated when I was probably around about 10, and I was with the eldest four. It was the youngest of the eldest four, so I went with my father, and the youngest four ended up being brought up in a home, and we would be visiting them every so often. My mum actually did have the younger four to begin with, but then she was found incapable of taking care of them, and they got put into a home.
wow.
So it was very challenging, I suppose, back then, and I suppose
I can't even imagine being separating the kids. How was that? How do you remember this time?
Oh, I remember a lot of things. I do, because we used to visit them and pick them up, and have them for a weekend every so often, and then they'd have to go back. And I just remember a lot of tears and, the separation of not wanting to leave each other, and they'd have to go and we'd have to go. And that was the common occurrence. And there were times where mum would kick dad out of the house with us, some of us kids, and we would sleep in the car. And I remember saying to my dad once, now, Dad, when we have to sleep in the car, you need to park in front of his house so that we don't get pulled over, the police don't come. Because I remember he parked in front of a park once,
Yeah.
and the police came and sent us back home.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go back home because it was a common occurrence that the police would come to our house and take her away.
Yeah.
So it was, there's several different things I could go on for hours about.
And how do you get that strength though of going through it again and again and again? How, like, do you go emotionally? Do you yourself, like personally, do you go down and feel very low and then pick yourself up again and continue on as a child, like as a 10-year-old? How do you carry on?
Well, back when I was 10, I suppose, you just did what you had to do. You didn't know any different. You tried to protect the other siblings as much as possible, and just basically did what you had to do, because we would often have to be responsible for looking after the household, doing washing, cleaning, all of those sorts of things. And back in those days, we didn't have dishwashers and washing machines. You hand washed everything and wrung it out with your hands and put it on the line. It was very different to what it's like today. And I guess, I used to, when I would go to school and do cooking classes, I would not eat the food that I would cooked. I would take it home so that it was, food for us to eat. So sort of growing up in I guess, a lot of poverty. So going to school, often, being a bit picked on because you didn't have all the good gear on and those kinds of things. So there was a lot of stuff that went on. But I think for myself, I just used to go off into my little dream world, I guess. I just would there was a tree in our house at the back. I used to go and sit up in the tree when I was really scared if my parents were fighting or arguing. And I would sit up in that tree and I just used to feel really safe, and like I'd had all these little fairies around me protecting me. And even today, I just love being out in nature. I, love walking and being amongst the trees and the grass, and now, I'm so grateful that we have so much beauty that surrounds us. So I feel very grateful for every day that I have on this planet, and what I can do to help others. But it's a passion of mine to, I guess, help people to understand themselves more, no matter what age they are, so they can, I guess, get to know who they are first, and really fall in love with themselves.
So when did you start falling in love with yourself? Like, when did you realize that you needed that in order to move forward?
Good question. I think in my growing up years, when I got married and everything, I was always looking for something. I always felt like something was missing for me. And I married a police officer, and I think the decisions I made because of my childhood, it did affect decisions I made as I was growing up. And I felt safe with him because I thought, oh, he's a policeman. He'll look after me. Nothing can happen to me. So although I did love him in my own way, it wasn't the right kind of way to be going about it. But we had two amazing children, a boy and a girl, together. And he's now since passed away, but in our marriage, it was a very challenging time to actually be married to the police force, I have to say. Yeah. And, you know, this is something where I've found this passion inside of me to want to help people that are in these kinds of jobs and services, because they have the ability to create change as well within the jobs that they have. However, they have to take care of themselves too, so that when they are in these vulnerable situations, they can there too take care of themselves, so they can go home. They can deal with their work, and they can go home and actually be there for their families as well.
Did you see that in your husband, like him coming back from work and having that feeling of what happened at work? How do I bring that home with me?
Yeah, he didn't often used to talk about a lot of things, but I knew certain things were affecting him. And I guess his way of doing that, he got involved with lots of different things within the police force. Yeah. And I think, you know, there's a culture in there too that they have, and I'm certainly not disrespecting anyone, but there is a lot of after work drinking, having beers, and all that sort of thing, because they have that camaraderie with each other. And that can actually become a problem in itself, because they're not actually facing certain things that they might be needing to deal with, and sort of sweeping it under the carpet, I guess, in a sense. That was something I saw in my husband, and that affected our marriage as well, and my children growing up. You know, I still feel very thankful for so many things in my life. I feel that the right people, the right things came into my life when I was ready for them. Yeah. Because I just wanted someone to love me, I think, really.
So when did you start, we were talking about when did you start knowing that you needed to love yourself? When did you feel you had?
When I was in my 20s, I think. I was always reading things and looking. I didn't like going out with the people my age, that going out to pubs and nightclubs and things like that. Even that I was kind of quite fearful of. I just didn't like being around people that drank alcohol, because their behaviour would change quite radically. And so I was always looking for something else. And quite a few years later, I came across an Anthony Robbins. I did an Anthony Robbins weekend.
Yes, you did Date of Destiny. Wow.
And that was something that really, I think, started me on the journey of self-discovery and starting to want to really change things in my life. And I certainly had a long way to go, but not realising it at the time. And, you know, becoming a parent myself, that was another thing that I guess changed me in so many ways, because I was absolutely elated when I had my kids. I was just, you know, thought they were the best thing since sliced bread. And I think honestly, when they were kids growing up, I felt like I got a chance to have the childhood that I never had, because my kids just accepted me. I could laugh with them and be stupid with them, and I was watching Walt Disney movies for the very first time that I'd never even seen before. And, you know, they would laugh with me, and I'd roll around on the floor with them and just muck around with them. And
because you didn't have that.
no, and it was so much fun, because the kids never judged me. That they just thought it was all great fun.
Yes.
But on the other hand, I think I was probably almost a bit overprotective of my kids as well. Like I maybe smothered them a little bit, because I went sort of from the extreme opposite, and gave them a lot of love and received a lot of love from them too. So I was very protective of them. So I probably didn't allow them to fend for themselves a little bit as they were growing. So I could see little bits of dysfunction in myself as a parent as well. And learning, I wanted to learn the better ways of being and the better ways of doing the things, being a parent, and for my own kids, because I didn't want my kids to suffer the way that I had when I was growing up. However, we still need to learn from our mistakes and learn things along the way, because sometimes, you know, especially younger children or teenagers, we think we're invincible and we know everything, you know, and we can be out there, and it's not until we start getting a little bit older that we have a bit more understanding of ourselves and what's going on for us. So I think it's great if you've got two functional parents that are loving towards each other. And I believe that if a person works on themselves first and falls in love with themselves first, they're going to attract another person that they can love and support as well.
It kind of attracts whatever you put out. It kind of attracts that back. Yeah,
I'm a firm believer of that, and I think that that reflects on your children as well, because if children are in a loving environment and they're not shamed and blamed, those things, they will probably grow up being a little bit more resilient and having a better knowledge and understanding of their own selves, and being more confident in the world, and being open to trying new things and being flexible. Because I used to be so fearful of so many things. Even when I was a teenager, I just always remember being very scared of lots of different things. And now, you know, I'm out there jumping out of aeroplanes and doing all sorts of things, like really experiencing.
But how long does it take? How long did it take you to kind of get to there? Because it's a process, isn't it? It doesn't quite...
Look, it's been a long journey, I have to say, and in different areas of my life. And of course, I'm not saying, I'm not criticising anyone in my life whatsoever, because I put myself in certain situations that weren't good for me. But at the time, I didn't realise it. It wasn't until later. So I think when I did the Anthony Robbins course, as I mentioned before, I started to think, okay, there's better ways of being, and I can be more positive, and I can have fun experiences. And I met some different people in my life that were a little bit more supportive and a bit more fun, and people that I didn't feel afraid of. So I would slowly start to let other people in and trust a little bit. Because I don't think I had a lot of trust in anyone. I just thought, oh, what are they going to do to me, or something like that. Something bad's going to happen. So that's how I would sort of think. But in regards to what you said before, regards to my mum, when we grew up and we were separated, as we got older, we actually heard from the Red Cross, from her relatives. She had relatives over in England that we had never met, and they were actually trying to find her. apparently we found this out a long time later. One of my sisters went over there and met some of them, and they had kids that were similar names to us, some of my sisters, so which we were pretty gobsmacked. It was like there was another family of us over in England. Some of them even looked similar to my sisters and myself, so quite remarkable. But the sister that went over there had said that my mother's sister had said when they first came out here, she would write letters quite regularly to her and talk about each child as each child was born and the names. And then over the years, as she was having more children and things were going, the letters got less and less and her writing deteriorated. So she knew that something wasn't quite right, and then they just stopped.
Is it does it deter the sickness? Does it go worse if untreated, or does it progress worse as she grew older?
Oh yes, I think so. And I think she was very clever, I suppose, because I do remember times where she used to make us get up in the middle of the night and scrub the house and, you know, be down on her hands and knees, like literally cleaning the house. After she'd had an episode of smashing things, we'd have to clean it all up. And I remember one day, like a community service workers, people that would come in and to sort of, I think, must see how things are going. So she would have the place looking spotless. And she would have us looking like we were all fine, and we were too scared to sort of open our mouth anyway. So we would just stand there and be all polite and everything. And she was able to, I suppose, convince them that things were all right. Because she must have been a very proud woman. She didn't want to admit that she wasn't coping or anything. And I guess back in those days, it wasn't as common as what it is today for people to be out and asking for help and, you know, mental health issues. And one of the things I've always mentioned in my mindfulness work and my meditations is that word of balance. It's just a word that I love using. Instead of mental health and well-being, because there's a difference between someone that's really, really sick in that way, like what my mother was, to someone just perhaps, you know, suffering depression or a bit of anxiety or something in comparison. And I think every person on the planet at some stage in their life is unbalanced. And that's how I like to see it or put it in their life. And when we have an awareness of what's going on for ourselves, we are able to get the correct help and we are able to change it. And once we realise and understand that we've got choices and set boundaries and all of those wonderful things that you start to learn about that you never realised, because we were never taught them as we were growing up. So I am able to do that a lot in my life now. I'm able to set boundaries for myself and continue on showing up every day as my best self and continue to be the best version of myself. Certainly doesn't mean that I'm perfect, because we're always learning right throughout our whole life. As we are growing and communicating and how we're being and how we see the world, because we all see things quite differently. And when I talk about my past, it's only really been, I never spoke about my past. I never spoke to anyone. People would ask me about my family or my parents and I just wouldn't say anything. I'd just say, oh they're both passed away now, or don't see them anymore. But I never would talk about my past. And over the years, as I've been able to do that and do the work on myself to understand it and not think that it was my fault somehow, that I did something wrong. I came here when I wasn't meant to, or something like that.
Did you think that? Did you think that when you were younger, did you think there was something because of you?
Oh,
That has
yeah.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah. I just remember just thinking, because Mum used to say a lot of horrible things to us too, you know, she'd sort of tell us that we weren't any good and we were ugly and all that kind of stuff. So, you started to believe it, I think, when as you were growing up, because
Yeah.
you got told it. So hence why I think I used to go off into my little dream world sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think there are times where I think I can do that today. Like people say to me, "Oh, how come you're always so happy?" You know, like it's not right, it's not true, or so. And I just say, "Well, I choose to be that way. It doesn't mean that I don't have things that occur in my day that might upset me a little bit. I still have emotions of sadness and grief and things like that. But it's how I am able to deal with them when they're occurring, because I know how to do that now. I didn't have any of those skills as I was growing up. So they were all skills that I learned along the way. So I did lots of self-development work and did lots of courses and things like that. And then I eventually came to work at Monash University, which is where I was trained in mindfulness.
Yeah.
And I was already conducting meditation classes at a community centre. And when I was doing the mindfulness with Dr. Craig Hassett and Richard Chamberlain, I just loved it. I loved how they conducted it, and so I really took it on board. And then they had said to me, "I think you need to do the train the trainers course so that you can actually facilitate this."
Yes.
And I said, oh, "Okay." And because I was practicing it in my own life every day, and I was really noticing myself how much things were changing, like people were changing around me, and well, they weren't really. I was
Yes.
changing,
Yes.
but I was getting very different responses because I was feeling better about myself.
Yeah.
I was gaining more confidence in myself. I was setting the boundaries. I was pausing before reacting, and not looking at things as, "Oh my God, this is just terrible. I don't know what to do, and I
Yeah.
need some help with this, and no one's there to help me." You know, that
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah. I
thing.
need rescuing and I
Yeah,
can't. Yeah.
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 All of that sort of stuff. So I'm very aware of myself today,
Yeah.
and I feel a lot of gratitude for that, because I now understand too, when I'm around people, I understand that it's not up to me to tell them what to do or to judge them or to have expectations from them.
Yeah.
Sometimes I need to just step back away and mind my own business.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if a person's not ready to learn something,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Mm.
They're just not ready yet. And it doesn't mean that I have to put myself in their presence and be treated badly
Yeah.
because of it. So respecting myself, and I think that was a huge thing for
I guess
me.
it comes with the boundaries. That's how, yeah, you find the respect for yourself and the confidence at the same time comes with it and all
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
And just some of the biggest heartfelt moments for me through my growing periods was just being able to have an honest, authentic conversation
Yeah.
with my son or my daughter, or and really noticing something because I didn't react to something. I would pause and take that breath, and then we were able to kind of talk about things in a different way rather than me sort of taking it personally or something, and getting
So
upset.
your children obviously know your story, but how did that like how did they take it? How did you make it part of your family as well? Because it comes from you and it's you.
Yeah, yeah. I think as they were growing, I would mention little things to them. I never really sat down and told them everything that had happened.
Yeah.
I just sort of started telling them little things about my mother as they were getting older,
Yes.
because, you know, there was no grandparents around much. So my husband's mother was a big part of their life. She's still alive, actually, and still sees sees them and her great-great-granddaughter, so which is lovely. But I think too, as they've grown up, they've had more understanding of how things have been for me, because I've always been honest with them in regards to my siblings, because it wasn't just about my upbringing with my mum. There was all that stuff going on.
I was going to ask, like, there's all these your siblings around you, all these brothers and sisters. How do you manage all that?
And of course, there was, growing up, there was a lot of detachment and a lot of different things, and each one of us would have perceived something quite differently as we were growing up. So it affected all of us in very different ways. So there's little bits of dysfunction or controlling behaviour or whatever you want to call it in different, you know, siblings. And they've had to grow up with that too, my kids. So I would have to sort of explain things along the way. And my son is just amazing in the fact that how he communicates. Just when he had his own daughter, I think when you have children, it sort of makes you really reflect back from when you were a child yourself, and you learn a lot from your children. And I remember him having a conversation with me one day and saying, you know, Mum, it must have been really hard for you growing up. Like, I'm looking at what's going on for us now, and you know, what it must have been like. And he started asking me a few things around that, and we were just having a nice conversation about it. But I'm okay now to talk about these things. Like, I don't have any fear around it, or remorse or hatred, or like, I see some people that are still angry and frustrated and blaming their parents for things that are happening in their life today, because they haven't been able to let go or forgive or that kind of thing. And it causes them a lot of suffering and a lot of pain. And I didn't want to do that to myself anymore either. I wanted to have a good life and enjoy my life.
And have you forgiven, I know there is not, have you forgiven your mum and your parents in total, even your dad, because he was there with you as well, with her as well, and he knew what was happening? Was there forgiveness? And how was the forgiveness? Did you?
When I started learning more about schizophrenia, I suppose, I started researching a little bit into that and learning more about those kinds of things. And I thought, gee, it must have been really challenging for her. And I did have an opportunity to have a conversation with my dad when he was a bit older. And being an artist, I remember, because he loved his students, loved his work. And I guess there was a part of me that used to think, oh, gee, he loves his work and his students loves us because he's not there, you know, that sort of thing. Bit of the victim mode thing going on. And I did it in a very different way. I said, oh, I'd like to learn how to sketch. So can I come over to your place once a week and you can show me how to sketch like he does, because he was very, very good at it. And I started doing this like once a week and having a very different sort of relationship with him. And then over that time, I just started asking some questions and telling him some stories of what it was like when he wasn't there. And he said to me one day he thought that it was better when he wasn't there for us, because he thought that she would be better if he wasn't around. And I said, no, that wasn't the case. And I told him some things that had occurred and things that I remembered. And he openly sat and wept when I was talking to him about that. And I asked him, I said, why did you keep having so many kids? Like, you know, and his answer at the time was, well, you know, we didn't have the contraception that they have here in today's age. And when your mother was pregnant, she was a lot different.
Oh, wow.
She was more calming and everything. And
Yeah.
as soon as she had the child, there was no,
Yeah.
and that's when the trouble would sort of start.
Yeah.
So whether she was suffering from postnatal depression, all sorts of things, and it wasn't getting looked at.
Yeah.
You know, nothing was, I suppose, getting looked at. So she just was not coping. So she was coping less and less the more children she was having.
Yeah.
And because I suppose financially, Dad wasn't able to provide as well, because most of the work that he did was for the church. He
Yeah.
spent many hours of doing that work for the church. So I can sort of see it now as I'm older and understand it a bit better, the circumstances. And I don't even try to understand why she behaved the way that she did. But I also have forgiven myself, and I'm okay now. Like for a lot of years, I wasn't. I don't think I was very saddened by this whole. Because there's lots of hidden stories within my family, lots of the secrets, I think,
Yes.
and the secrets have only come out. They come out later on in years.
Yeah.
A lot of secrets that were never told, and I remember a lot of the secrets and things that have occurred over the years where they have come back. Those things have come back,
Yeah.
and that's just siblings that grew up in that environment.
Yeah.
That have
And
had.
how do you see what is the change you could have done, or you would tell somebody to kind of, with all the help that we have these days, with all the phone numbers that we can call if there's family violence, or somebody we know is sick, or something like this, how would you tell a young person listening to us here to how to take care of themselves, and how to, even in the 20s or 30s, to look after themselves and love and learn to love themselves back, and you can actually reach the other side? How do you see that? How do you see a young one
I
going
think
through?
one of the biggest things I would like to say is to just get back to basics. Really start getting to know who you are and noticing what you enjoy doing in your life. So all of the things that we call as normal things that a lot of people probably don't do, taking care of themselves, and that is making sure you're getting enough sleep at night, making sure that you're being physically active every day, because that physicality of being active is good for your mental health and well-being as well as your body.
Yeah.
Eating well, making sure you're drinking plenty of water, noticing the things that you are doing in your day, and having authentic conversations, by having a little bit of compassion and empathy for others, and not allowing yourself to jump in to the pot sort of thing.
Yeah.
So when things are happening, just step back a little bit, take the breath, and rise above it a little bit. Just ask, how important is it? But if there's really damaging things going on, look at where you can get the help. Like even at Monash University, there was a lot of help for the students. We ran mindfulness sessions regularly for the students. There was counsellors there. We would run events for Are You OK Day.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more openness about it. So when something's happening, talk to someone that will be able to help you, not going to sort of someone that has got no idea and says,
Yeah.
"Oh, don't be so stupid. What are you thinking like that for?" So find the resources, because there are a lot of good resources out there where we can start to get the help. And I guess one thing I would say is go and get coached, because
Yes.
coaches learn so much about human development and emotional intelligence and all of those sorts of things. And I find that this is also, as I said, it's like it growing on another level.
Yeah.
There's always something to learn, and it's how we show up each and every day as ourselves. So coming to our heart space, like getting out of our head and coming into our heart,
Yeah.
is a really nice thing to do. And meditations, and it doesn't have to be sitting there like a guru for 8 hours going on. It's even just a couple of minutes a day, just stopping for a moment, closing your eyes, taking a few nice deep breaths and just resetting, getting yourself back into balance, and then start looking at what it is you can do. And, you know, there are so many people out there that don't know how to be. They don't know themselves.
Being present. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they follow people, and sometimes they can get in with the wrong crowd, and then they're into drugs and alcohol, and the way society is today is I have to say quite appalling in a lot of ways. I look at just advertisements on the television in regards to alcohol and gambling, and you have an ad where they say, oh, they have fun and party, and drinking's great, it's socially acceptable. Don't worry if you've got any problems, just drink and you'll be happy. So no one's dealing with the real issues, and that can create further issues. And then they'll have an ad on the TV straight after that ad saying, if you've got a gambling problem or you've got a drinking problem, go and ring this number. And I sort of think, what is that about? Like, is that about the whole
protecting themselves nearly, like by saying, you know.
I just think it's appalling. I really do. And I think the government, you know, I mean, you can go into all sorts of things. And that's not for me to sort of say, but I stay away from a lot of that stuff. I don't associate with a lot of people that are like that. If I'm in an uncomfortable situation, I remove myself, and I don't feel bad about that. And as I was growing up, there were a lot of times where people would ask me if I wanted to smoke a joint or have a drink and things like that. And I always said no. And I don't even know why. I could have easily got caught up in that stuff.
This is another question that I wanted to ask you. Why how come you could get over that and kind of go through the healing of what happened from your childhood to get you to here? How do you explain that some of the people in the same, maybe some of your siblings or even some people in the same similar situation, they can go completely on the other side? Like accepting, like you were saying, accepting the joint, accepting the drug, accepting the alcohol and all this. I mean, you could have gone this way.
Absolutely. I look at
but
that.
What steered you? How did you know not to go this way?
I think one of the things for me, and I do recognise it as a young person, even when I was younger, I looked after my sister's children when they were young. I babysat for them because I lived with them for a little while, and I was only like 15 and babysitting a 1 and 3-year-old, and I enjoyed that, looking after them. And I think it was because kids don't judge you, and I used to feel very out in that society of going out. I used to feel quite judged. And don't get me wrong, there was times through my life where I did go out as I got a bit older, go out and go to a few of the nightclubs and have a few drinks and things like that. But I never wrote myself off, so to speak. And I think it was purely because I always wanted to know what was going on. I didn't like the idea of you know, when you have a few drinks, you sort of don't really, you haven't got all your wits about you. Especially if I was in an environment where I didn't know people, I didn't want to
Because you had the excuse that it would be okay if you went wrong, because everybody would say, well, her childhood was, you know, a hard childhood. So it's understandable. It's kind of, we as a society would say it's okay. We understand, we're compassionate.
Yeah.
But you're taking it to the level where you're actually helping these people who, you're taking it to not only healing you, but healing others.
Yeah, well, it's important to me because it's something that really sits in my heart space. I'm like I said, I'm grateful every day to have my son and my daughter and my granddaughter. Um, they just fill my heart with joy all the time, regardless of what else is going on in my life. And I feel really blessed to have that from what I grew up with. And I just have this sense of wanting families to understand when you have a baby, when you have a child, that you have to take some responsibility for that child.
Yeah.
And while, like I said before, having two adult functional parents isn't really that common in this day and age. Like two parents that have worked on themselves and love the person that they are and have a very functional home where they care for one another and they respect one another and they set boundaries and they teach their children these things and show their children how much they're loved and accepted, without ridiculing them or shaming them or blaming them. Because when we grew up, there was a lot of that sort of stuff in schools where you got, the belt and embarrassed, like put in a corner, and shamed. And it's, I think they're the sorts of things that a lot of people remember in their unconscious mind. And as they grow up, they rebel and they behave in ways that even they probably don't understand. And that's how they can get caught up in the drugs and the alcohol and all of that, because it's, woohoo, and who cares sort of thing. They don't have to take any responsibility for their own behaviour. So when we can learn that, as we're growing adults, we start to mature, I suppose. And I know people that are in their same age as me and they're still not really very grown up. So a lot of people take their problems to their grave with them because they've never been able to face them or deal with them in some way, shape or form. So when you're able to face the fear and work with it, or work with someone that you trust and you can be vulnerable with, like a coach, it really can make a transformation in somebody's life, no matter what age they're at. But a person has to be willing, and they also have to have the awareness of that something's not quite right, to be able to say, hey, I'm feeling like something's not quite right here, and I don't want to bring this issue into my own family when I have kids or something. So it's probably a good idea if I sort of get some help to work this out so that I can live a more happier and joyful life. Because we all have that choice. And some of us just don't realise that because we don't know, and it's not their fault really, because they're just doing the best that they know how with what they've got. And it's easier to blame other people or other situations than stop and actually have a look at your own behavioural patterns and say, wow, I think I need to change something here. I'm not being very nice, and what is it that I can do? Because that's the stuff that takes courage. It really does, to be able to look at yourself and go, okay, I'm the only one that can do something about my situation. I just need to find the right person or the right help to start me off to change my journey and create the rest of your life to be the best of your life.
And believe that change can happen no matter what.
Absolutely.
No matter what age, no matter what's the timing. young ones, older ones, anything. Because I know for myself, knowing that a change had to happen was like in my late 30s to my early 40s. It's, you know, there is that time where it kind of clicks in your head. There is something not quite, something that you're looking for. You kind of there's something else, that where is it, like what is it, and you have to find it when you have that feeling and you know it and you're aware of it.
And when you're able to do something with that,
Yeah.
you can really free yourself up.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you're never going to have any issues in your life. It's how we deal with the things when they occur at the time that they're occurring. And, you know, being around the people that are supporting you, you know, having that supportive network of people when something does go wrong, they're there for you, like, you know.
So now when you look, like today, when you look at your childhood, how you grew up and all your siblings grew up, you see it as your past, like it happened, but you don't attach any emotions to it? Is that how it is?
Yeah, that's how I feel now. Like I said, I can sit here and talk about my mum and talk about some of the violent things that occurred, and I don't have it doesn't make me feel anything. I don't sort of get stirred
And
up.
that's healing. That's the point of healing.
Absolutely. And I think it was only when I was able to start bringing those things up and talking about them to the right people, I was able to go, oh my goodness, I didn't realize I had so much stuff buried down deep inside of me that was affecting me in so many ways.
Is there more inside that needs, sometimes it comes up and you go, oh, I've forgotten about this one?
Yes, like there's always little, it's like they say about that onion layer.
Yes, yeah.
And you think, and I suppose because I'm on a bit of a new growth journey myself, like I've made a big transition from, you know, working at Monash University to starting my own business and being a coaching business or facilitator of mindfulness, and learning all of the new things I'm learning. Every so often I'm sort of hit with something and I go, whoa, what's going on here? Like I thought that I dealt with that thing because it pops up. But the beauty of that is being in the environment that I'm in with the Coaching Institute, I'm able to get pretty quickly mentored with that and say, hey, I can see this thing that's holding me back a bit or stopping me from moving forward, and I really actually want to deal with it because I don't want to be held back anymore. I want to just keep moving forward because I know the benefits of that.
Yeah. And you move quicker and faster as well.
Oh,
Because
yeah, it happens like very quickly now.
Yeah, because you are aware of it like a bit quicker than before, and you know, oh, that's another one. Let's deal with that.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't feel as though I've got to do everything on my own. I used to feel like I was always on my own, trying to struggle through life and survive, you know, because I guess as a kid, that's what it was like. You pretty much had to just survive. And I lived a lot of my life like that without realizing it.
Yeah.
Wondered why I often lived in a lot of fear and was too scared to kind of venture out and explore and be curious. And as I've grown and learned these things along the way, I do have a much better, more fruitful life today. So I feel like through the experiences I've had myself, I can help other people and be empathetic and nurture, and also have the confidence to be a little bit assertive when I need to be, because that was something I could never do. As soon as anyone raised their voice to me or was a little bit like, I'd just go, whoop, and me, I'll shut down. I was too scared to speak up for myself. So now I feel I have a voice, and it's okay for me to have a voice. And it's okay for me to share, because I feel that I can really be of service and help other people that are going through challenging times. And um, I I think if I can help one person
Yeah.
change something in their life, that has such a ripple effect, because that one person can be different to all of the people around them, their family, their work colleagues, their
Yeah.
friends. You know, all of a sudden, because their change is coming from within them,
Yeah.
people notice the change. It's sort of, oh, what's going on with you? You know,
Yeah.
I want some of what you've got.
Yeah.
You seem to know what you're doing. You seem to be
Yes.
switched on, and you
Yeah.
make good decisions, and you don't get caught up in any gossip and things like that, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of those things that can happen too with people.
And I guess with what you teach as well, you're attracting that positive energy, because you're healing yourself, but you're also putting
mm,
the real you out, and you're
mm,
attracting that positive energy instead of
hanging
scavenging,
on to it.
to
Yeah. And
hanging
not
on.
realizing when you're in that
Yeah,
space, and when you're in something,
yeah,
you don't quite realize how toxic it is.
yeah,
So I feel a lot of gratitude around that, because I feel like I've managed to break a toxic cycle with
yeah,
my family, my
yeah,
little, you know.
yeah,
And I look at the way my son is as a dad, and that's the stuff that I just go,
yeah,
that's, you know,
yeah.
I get
And you
quite,
created that. You created that.
well, I don't see it like that, but that to me just blows me away.
Yeah,
You know, when I watch him and what he's like with his little daughter, and she's just so gorgeous,
yeah,
um, and she's a beautiful soul. Like, she looks into your eyes like she knows stuff, and I just go, whoa! You know, it is wonderful, and I think that's, you know, how it should be, isn't it? Like, it's the circle of life, that joy, and when a baby comes, a baby is
yeah.
just there. They, you know,
Does it seem like you went full circle? Like you, even in your career, I can see that full circle with, Monash studying and bringing that into your business now, and in your personal life, going through all these challenges, which is like amazing. I do not know how you've gone through this, and bringing this up to now, where you're actually helping others and healing others. It's nearly like, if you didn't have that, you wouldn't be you. It is.
no,
If you didn't
that,
have that, you wouldn't be you,
that's right.
and you wouldn't be here.
Absolutely. And I feel, as I said, much gratitude around that, because this is a passion of mine, and it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time, but I've just been apprehensive at, you know, thinking, oh, I'm getting too old for that, or, but you know, you're never too old.
Yes,
And I
yes.
don't feel that I'm that old, but my childhood just seems like it was another lifetime,
Yeah,
like it wasn't me.
yeah.
If that makes sense. So
But it's kind of needed to happen in order for you to be who you are, because if not, you wouldn't have, maybe you wouldn't have gone to Anthony Robbins and do
that's
Date of
right.
Destiny. You know what
That's
I mean?
right.
It would not have started something.
Yeah. And that was just one of many. Like,
Yes,
there's been many people and courses and
yes,
healing work that I've done over the years, to help me through
yes,
understanding certain things that have happened, and you know, how to deal with them and all of that kind of stuff. So
yeah. And
it's
and you kept seeing the positive in all of this too, that led to here.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
And it
find that
can be done. You can learn different skills. It doesn't matter what age you are. Um, if you're ready and willing and able,
yeah,
um, it's amazing what a better life you can have. Like, I just, you know, like I said, I just take one day at a time, and I love planning certain things, but I also love being in the moment, being in the present moment, like just here being with you right now and
yeah,
having this conversation. it's just a real pleasure to be able to, you know, look at the things you've even just shared a little bit of your story of knowing when in years as you're growing,
Yes,
something
because
changed.
I think we all do somehow.
Mm,
Like
mm,
it's only. Let me tell you, I don't have anything tragic in my life. Like growing up, I have a pretty, I would say, normal, streamlined parents. Kind of. Of course, there are issues. I can bring that up, like all families do. But what amazes me and why I'm doing this podcast, like I shared with you originally, is because we all have a story. Even if I believe I do not have a story in my past, there is, because
yeah.
I've been affected by many, many things that I perceived affected me by my family, because of my family, or things like that, that I had to deal with. But there is a point in time when in your life, especially as the kids grow up and are a bit more independent, where you go, okay, but what about me? Where is me here?
Yeah.
What happened to me during all these years? You know, I believe everybody goes through this, but I've reached that point, like I was saying, in my late 30s and early 40s, where you go, well, you know, the kids are okay now. These kids are independent and doing their thing, but what, like, it's like you're left behind. My husband
Mm,
can't rescue me. My husband can't do he's not my healer. He's here for me, yes,
yeah.
100%, but what about me?
Yeah,
This is when I think we all reach that point where you go, there is more. What is that more?
absolutely. And
And
when we're being a parent, we're sort of busy looking after children and raising the kids. We kind of forget about ourselves a bit,
yes,
don't we? And we
yes,
can kind of feel a bit lost once
yes,
they go and, you know, leave the nest or whatever you call it,
yes,
and sort of go, yeah, well, now what about me? What am I
yeah,
going to do? You know, so
yeah.
you start to find yourself again, I guess, and um, learn about yourself, learn your likes and your dislikes, and start to experience things in life that you haven't experienced before, and allow those experiences to be joyful,
Yeah,
and embrace them rather than fearing them.
yeah, because like life is more than all the things we have around us. Life is so much more. Like it's so
Mm,
precious. We
it
live
is, isn't
here.
it? Yeah. So
Why?
it sort of waste. I feel that it wastes time if you're suffering, you know, because you haven't let go of something or
Yes,
someone, and still feeling pain and anger and frustration,
yes,
um, for something that would happen years ago, and you haven't had been able to confront it, or even just to that point of wanting another person to change
yes,
so that you can feel better yourself.
yes.
It doesn't, that doesn't fix anything.
And it doesn't need to be big as well.
No,
It can be like little things that you remember happen, like silly little things. It triggers so much emotion
yeah,
because you've
yeah,
created a story around it, and you embellishing all these stories as you grow, and it becomes like that big story. And
mm,
you have to let that go. There's a point in time where you have to just let that go and just be. It
absolutely.
happened, but
Yeah.
it's
It's
now.
not now, is it?
No.
It's like you're living in the now, and
Yes.
because then you're really living instead of just being in your head all
Yes.
the time, you know,
Yes.
which I know a lot of
Definitely.
people are. Yeah.
Like this morning, I was on a podcast this morning, somebody else's podcast, and she was talking about authenticity, being authentic in the now.
Mm,
And this is something that I've recently learned because I'm a corporate accountant, right? I'm an accountant, I'm a chartered accountant, I'm very corporate. I've 23 years being an accountant, and this is who I was. And I believe I brought that into my life, into my personal life, being that structured,
mm.
professional woman who seems to be in control of everything that goes in the house, which really it's not. But but the authenticity of being in the now, I find now being authentic and being myself with everything that I am, with my accent, with who I am, how I talk, and who, attract the right people towards me. And this is being in the now and being real.
Absolutely.
With nothing in front of me, just being here.
Yes.
And that's the aim. That's the aim, I reckon.
I agree. I think that's, it's wonderful just being able to sit here and chat like this. It
Yes, and
doesn't
being at
feel...
peace with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no agenda or expectations or anything like that. And I guess the more people that can hear some of these things that we're talking about in the world, like out there, because they're letting minute things affect them.
Yeah.
And then when a big thing does come along, it really destroys people. So building the resilience is actually a good thing. And it's not meaning that you don't care. It's just you're having more care for yourself. And
it's okay. And it's
okay.
okay.
It is. It's
to
absolutely
care about yourself.
okay.
It's not selfish.
No, it's not selfish. And, I guess when we were growing up, we were always taught to take care of everyone else first before you take care of yourself, because that's what you did. But you've got to put that oxygen mask on yourself, and so that when you're okay, you can take it off and be there for other people and help them when the help's required.
Definitely.
So yeah.
So Christine, I thank you so much for being here with me on a Friday afternoon, and and thank you for the time that you've given me, and your story, which is like an amazing way of a woman growing and being that woman of today. And it's a great testimonial to how much courage you had to find within yourself to not only go through the episodes and the past, but actually going through the healing, the courage of it, and putting your hand up and saying, I need help.
Yes.
And I will get the help, and I will come out on the other side.
Absolutely.
And I can bring you with me now to help others. You're a celebration, and I thank the universe, God, that we met.
Oh, thank you. That's lovely.
Because it stayed with me. I know where you live. I think the beach stayed with me more than anything.
Yes, I'm living the life down here. I can say that it is beautiful. It is beautiful where I live. Yeah.
And you deserve every single bit of it. So thank you very much for being here with me today.
Yes, thank you. It just shows you that dreams really can come true, because this was something I dreamed of, was being able to live across the road from the beach, and I do.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and you're very welcome. It's been a real joy. Thanks, Martine.
Thank you. I'll